Good day. It's noon here in Budapest. We're here at the World Export Development Forum live. I hope you've heard our session this morning on making trade work for the 99%. We have here with us our moderator from CNBC Africa, Georgie Ndirangu, who is going to give us a bit of sense of the session and how it went.
Right. So at first, when you look at the roster and you see the program has 7 panelists, 6 or 7 panelists, the hardest bit is trying to consolidate most of the thoughts to one, to get everyone on the same page. But it was pretty interesting. I know Dr. Gomes will give a bit more perspective from his end on applicability of what was spoken. But it was really interesting hearing best practices from all over the world. Maybe sometimes when people are in Africa, you hear when you hear an external perspective, you think it's intrusive, or when you're outside and you hear about Africa, you can't really relate. But now we got onto a level playing field where everyone has things that are happening on ground, and it's pretty easy to map that forward when you know exactly where you're coming from. We also got questions from the audience, which in regards to Egypt and Ghana and how different countries can now get onto different platforms. SheTrades has been one of them. So it's definitely being the first session, that means that the next sessions should be pretty interesting.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Gomes from the ACP Secretariat, representing 79 countries, Africa, Caribbean, Pacific. I'm sure that this session has been interesting for you. What would you say it takes to scale up what's good to make these countries become a better part of world trade?
I believe we have to build on the impact that is being created by the 99%. What was coming across very clearly is that the 99%, disadvantaged and exploited as they are mobilizing. I like very much the idea of SheTrade has to be a movement. We're closer now to less talk and much more action, and that is why the great examples that emerged from the floor was significant. The Egypt Business Women's Association were talking about technology transfer. Immediately they see the significance of that. If you are going to be competitive, if you are going to enter the global trading system, you must have access to appropriate technology. Secondly, they said that cannot come without connectivity, and that means infrastructure. Now, I believe also a dimension of infrastructure that must not be overlooked is not only the technology, but organization. Organizing and seeing and learning from each other. That's why, again, South-South cooperation was mentioned, and that too has to be most importantly brought to the fore. And there's great hope, therefore, for this entire forum to make things happen and also make things change. Now, last point, because we are concerned about the WTO and the whole multilateral trading system, we want voices loud and clear to support what our ministers said and how our ministers were joined by the European Union in declaring full support and commitment that multilateral trading system through the WTO must continue. We cannot shift from that agenda. Its heart has to be development. That is why it was set up in Doha.
We had the Sri Lanka minister saying he would love to come to Rwanda. Maybe we could have the same panel in Rwanda as well. We would love to have it there.
No, I'd be more than happy to come to Rwanda. In fact, Rwanda is very close to us in the ACP, where we launched the entire Federation of Press Clubs. Because again, the question of intelligence and the question of diffusing the knowledge that is there among the 99% and the work that ITC is doing in this area is so important that so much can be learned from each other that will make a difference. And it's that sharing of experiences and building on them. It cannot happen though without the policy being changed. That's why we say the policy framework, the regulation. And I want, along with the business persons and of course decision makers as ministers, to have the legislators. Those who are questioning the laws that are there, looking at how the laws can in fact address the questions of inequality for gender, but also for various areas.
Perfect. No, that's about it, actually.
I have just one last question. There was a talk in the opening address by the President of Hungary, and he was talking about environmental issues, and that also got picked up in the Making Trade Work for 99%. What about environmental sustainability in trade, in getting things out and protecting the 99%?
Right. Probably I could begin from what we've noted before. Environmental sustainability. We had partners like the Afrexim Bank and the African Development Bank talking about how they'll fund to the tune of $300, $500 million to get these companies going on clean and renewable energy. So it's nice to see different economies get on the same wavelength in terms of now we are talking about the future 2030, but will we be alive by 2030? So we need to make sure that we stay in the same breath and the resources are still available 13 years from now. So it's a nice step to see financiers now join actual businesses that are on ground doing that. Yeah, and women on the forefront as well with most of these clean and renewable energy businesses, right?
Yes, the environmental aspect is cross-cutting, it is fundamental, because what the President referred to in terms of the Paris Agreement, omitting anything about maritime shipping and maritime resources. So while we are concerned in the WTO about fishing subsidies and looking at, illegal, unregulated, unreported fishing, there's a wider context of what is happening to our oceans and seas. They're being grossly polluted, and we have to bring those under the discipline of a Paris Agreement so that we address it. So the environmental dimension has to be kept aspects of trade and in the wider world of how we are going to survive as a family, one humanity, to make the planet really sustainable for us all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you both. And stay tuned for more reporting from the World Export Development Forum.